U.S. President Joe Biden has unveiled a new plan to tackle his country's COVID-19 emergency. Announcing the measures on his first full day in power, he said drastic action is needed. It will include tightening rules on wearing masks in public. Testing will be stepped up, and travelers to the U.S. will have to test negative and quarantine on arrival. Biden also wants to speed up the vaccination program. He's warning, though, that the pandemic will get worse in the coming weeks, with the death toll likely to rise from 400,000 to 500,000 next month.
Taking charge of bringing the pandemic under control.
This next one is keeping workers safe. How to do that.
A day into his new job, President Biden signed a raft of executive orders to ramp up the federal response to the coronavirus.
For the past year, we couldn't rely on the federal government to act with the urgency and focus and coordination we needed. And we have seen the tragic cost of that failure.
Over 400,000 people have now died in the U.S. And Biden warns the toll is likely to rise to 500,000 in February. But he hopes the strategy he's putting in place will eventually save many lives.
Knowing that his mom is in good hands here.
Our national strategy is comprehensive. It's based on science, not politics. It's based on truth, not denial, and it's detailed. Our plan starts with mounting an aggressive, safe, and effective vaccination campaign to meet our goal of administering 100 million shots in our first 100 days in office. We're on day one. This will be one of the greatest operational challenges our nation has ever undertaken.
The U.S. is currently administering almost 1 million doses a day. But the rollout has been rocky, and several states have complained of scarce supplies. Biden's deploying the Defense Production Act to help vaccine manufacturers increase production. He's also implementing measures to improve distribution. And after being effectively banished from Trump administration briefings, the nation's top infectious diseases doctor is back. Anthony Fauci says he feels liberated the science can now speak. He's optimistic vaccines can suppress the virus despite new variants emerging.
If we get 70 to 85% of the country vaccinated, let's say by the end of the summer, middle of the summer, I believe by the time we get to the fall, we will be approaching a degree of normality. It's not going to be perfectly normal, but one that I think will take a lot of pressure off the American public.
The message from the Biden administration is clear. Hope is on the horizon. But it will still take many months to overcome the pandemic and the devastation it has wrought.
DW's William Glucroft is covering this story for us. William, what's different about Joe Biden's approach to fighting the coronavirus compared to what we saw under Donald Trump?
I think we heard about it right there in the report, in a word, science. Biden already said during the campaign and when he was president-elect that he would let science dictate the agenda and not politics, like we saw so often under the Trump administration, not just politics, but Trump's own wishes and things that would make him look good or thought that he would look good. We also heard in the report how Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's the White House's chief science advisor or infectious disease advisor, saying he feels liberated that science is going to lead the way, that basically he can come to a meeting to advise the President Biden and his advisors on what to do. And if he doesn't know, it's okay to say you don't know. You don't have to make things up just to satisfy him. That said, this is a very ambitious rollout. Independent science and medical people are saying 100 million doses is A, ambitious, and B, might not even be enough. It's also uncertain if 100 million doses means 100 million people, or if it means 50 million people if they're going to go the two-dose route. There's also an enormous amount of federal agencies that the U.S. government can deploy that we'll have to see if really will happen. For example, OSHA, that's the federal agency that oversees workplace safety. They've been almost AWOL throughout this entire pandemic. We'll have to see if Joe Biden turns to this agency as just one example to make sure that workplaces are safe for workers. So a lot to see how this 100-day plan really works out.
Well, Biden's plan also includes a strong emphasis on mask wearing, for example. How receptive do you think Americans will be to his new approach?
It seems Americans have for a long time just mostly needed consistent messaging from their elected leaders. Polls show that a majority of Americans take this pandemic seriously and disapproved of Donald Trump's handling of it. And so really what's needed here is consistent, strong, science-based messaging. And while the federal government and Joe Biden is somewhat limited in what they can do because state and local authorities have a lot of authority when it comes to health measures and, for example, enforcing masks, they can definitely set the tone that creates more of a universal response to the pandemic.
William, thank you very much. That was DW's William Glucroft. Well, here's a look at some of the other developments worldwide in the coronavirus pandemic. Germany's public health body, the Robert Koch Institute, says more than 50,000 people in Germany have now died from coronavirus. In Spain, the easing of travel restrictions over Christmas to allow families to get together caused a huge spike in infections. Intensive care admissions have increased by 60% in the last 2 weeks. And the number of people dying by suicide in Japan has risen for the first time in over a decade as the pandemic reverses years of progress combating a high suicide rate. Japan's health ministry says women and children in particular are taking their lives at higher rates.